This lesson will be on empirical formula. Empirical formula gives us the simplest whole number ratio of atoms of each element in a compound. It's different to molecular formula because molecular formula gives the exact numbers of atoms of each element present in the formula of a compound. So an example of this is benzene. Benzene has a molecular formula C6H6. In other words, there's going to be the exact number of atoms in this compound are going to be 6 atoms of carbon and 6 atoms of hydrogen. That is molecular formula. What makes empirical formula different is that it's the simplest ratio. So this can be simplified into CH because there's 1 carbon atom for every 1 hydrogen atom because they can both be divided by 6. The very first thing that you need to remember when you're trying to work out the empirical formula is the formula to work out moles. So moles I'm going to represent with an N. And to work out moles, you're going to divide the mass, which can either be in grams or as a percentage composition, by the relative atomic mass. So I'm going to expand more on this during this video. So the first question that I'll be completing reads, what is the empirical formula of a compound containing 40% sulfur and 60% oxygen? So here we have a compound which contains sulfur and oxygen. First thing that I need to do to work out the moles, remember, sulfur, in the question it says 40%. So the mass is given in the question, 40, and the mass that's given of oxygen in the question is 60%. Notice these have been given as percentages, but it's exactly the same. It doesn't matter whether it's in grams or percentage composition. Then I'm going to divide it by the relative atomic mass, which you can find on your datasheet or your periodic table. Now sulfur, which has a symbol S, its relative atomic mass is 32, so you're going to look at the bigger number, which on this periodic table is above the symbol, so 32. Oxygen, which is here in group 6, has a relative atomic mass of 16. When I work these out, it's going to give me the moles of each. So using my calculator, 40 divided by 32, 1.25. 60 divided by 16 is 3.75. Now what you have to do is you have to divide these two numbers by the smallest number. So 1.25 is smaller than 3.75, so we're going to divide both by 1.25. 1.25 divided by 1.25 would be 1. 3.75 divided by 1.25 gives us 3. So this is the simplest ratio now. And to put it into an empirical formula, it means we have 1 sulfur for every 3 oxygens. So the empirical formula would be SO3. So example 3 includes a compound which has 3 elements. The question reads, what is the empirical formula for a compound containing 26.57% potassium, 26.57%, so the mass is given in the question. Potassium has a symbol K in the periodic table. 35.36% chromium. Chromium has the symbol Cr in the periodic table. And 38.07% oxygen. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, or the second thing we need to do now, is to work out the moles. And remember, to work out the moles, we're going to divide the mass which is provided in the question divided by the relative atomic mass which you'll find in your data sheet. So the 26.57 divided by its relative atomic mass, which would be 39. So 26.57 divided by 39 is 0.68. Chromium, the mass that's given in the question is 35.36. And I'm going to divide this mass by the relative atomic mass of chromium, which is 52. And that also gives me 0.68. Oxygen, the mass in the question of oxygen was given as 38.07. I'm going to divide it by the relative atomic mass, which is 16. That gives 2.37. Now I'm going to divide these moles by the lowest mole, so it would be 0.68. 0.68 divided by 0.68 would be 1. Same again. And then 2.37 divided by 0.68 gives 3.49, which I'll round up to 3.5. Now, these two are fine, but this isn't a whole number. So remember, an empirical formula, it needs to be the simplest whole number ratio. So the way around this is, if you were to divide each of these numbers by 2, if you were to multiply each of these numbers by 2, you'd have whole numbers. So you'd get 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 2 is 2, and 3.5 multiplied by 2 is 7. So the formula would be K2 Cr2 O7, and that would be the empirical formula, because that's the simplest whole number ratio